All right, 3 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. This meeting is being streamed live through the St. Clair Township website. By attending a public meeting of council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and published to the township website. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream and public record. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. I'm going to kind of go out of order a little bit, so let's take a moment of silence to remember and honor an iconic member of our community who was laid to rest this past week. John's presence, knowledge, and dedication left a mark that will never fade. He will be remembered with respect and gratitude. Okay, thank you. This summer, John spent many passionate hours surveying and directing the progress of the rehabilitation of the Marshy Creek Bridge right outside his door. I will miss those update emails, so in his memory, I would like to install a plaque and rename the bridge the John DeMars Bridge, if someone would like to make an motion to that effect. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Do we have a second? Councilor Myers, all those in favor? Carried. I think that would be a great thing. Thank you all. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Anybody has one, you can declare now or at the appropriate time. So be it resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on December 15th, wow, December 15th, it's been a whole month almost, 2025 be received and approved. We have a mover. Councilor Langus, second. Councilor Brown, any questions? All those in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following township committees be accepted and approved. Heritage St. Clair, October and November 2025 minutes. And Moore Museum Advisory Committee, December 2025 minutes. Have a mover for that. Councilor Foster, second. Councilor Langstaff. Any questions? All those in favor? Carried. Be it resolved, we'll continue on until 3:10, I guess. Be it resolved that the request for a reduced speed limit on St. Clair Parkway be received. Do we have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor. Seconder. Councilor Foster.
I want to speak to it.
Okay, hang on one second. Who received the? Oh, you can speak to it now, I guess. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that I think this was suggested before, and I'm going to make a motion that your staff look into having a professional survey done on that road Because we're the laughing stock of the south end, because we can't decide what speed limit we want on that road. So I think it's time that we did something about it. So I'm not gonna vote in favor of this.
Okay, there's a motion coming down, so you can switch around. All those in favor to receive the report? Carried. Now, would somebody like to make a motion for the reduced speed limit?
I'll make a motion to have staff look into having a professional survey done on the St. Clair Parkway to decide what speed should be in what zones.
Got that, Mr. Clerk? Have a second of Councilor Langstaff? Any questions? Councilor Brown?
So if I understand the deputy mayor's motion, we're going to get a report back that'll entail from LaSalle line right to White Bread.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All those in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the building permit comparison for November 2025 be received. Mover for that. Councilor Langus. Second. Councilor Foster. Any questions? All those in favor? Carried. Looks like quite a few pools in there last year, George. That was one of the big add-ons, I guess. Be it resolved that the Commissioner of Oaths appointment report submitted by Clerk Jeff Bernick be received as information and that Terry Ann Week be reappointed as the Township Commissioner of Oaths. Have a mover for that, Deputy Mayor. Second. Councilor Langus. All those in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the 2024 Financial Indicator Review from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing report submitted by Treasurer George Lozon be received as information. Mover for this one. Councilor Langstaff, thank you. Second. Councilor Myers. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the financial statements for the period of January to November 2025 report as submitted by Treasurer George Lozon be received as information. Mover. Councilor Foster. Second. Councilor Langstaff. Any questions? All those in favor? Carried. Excuse me. Be it resolved that the 2026 OPP annual billing and reconciliation of 2024 cost report submitted by Treasurer George Lozon be received as information. The mover for this. Councilor Foster. Second. Councilor Myers. You got the eye that time, didn't you? Any questions? Councilor Brown.
Well, just pointing out that residents should know what our OPP costs are, and I'm looking, I know the budget amount is $2.4 million, which covers our policing and doesn't necessarily cover off all the overtime that if they have a major crime investigation too.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All those in favor? Carried. Yeah, we'll do one more. Be it resolved that the monthly fire department report submitted by Director of Emergency Services, Fire Chief Richard Boyce, be received as information. Mover for this one. Councilor Langus, second. Councilor Langstaff. Any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Langus.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Chief, I'm just wondering, why is there always different reports, like different looking reports every month? Are we trying to figure out which ones work the best, or it just seems that there's always a new look on the different reports every month?
Your worship, through the counselor, yes, it's a new look because as we're transitioning into first due, you're noticing a lot more detail coming out, and we're trying to come up with a format that can tell council what's going on more directly and give you an example. So yeah, apologies for it kind of changing format, but we're getting there. We've fully transitioned now into the first due software. Our year of implementation is over. So we're starting to get some actual records that we can draw back on, because for a while there, we were working back and forth between Fire Pro and First Due. So it will smooth out. And if council has any suggestions as to what you'd like to see, or if you think something's missing, let me know and we'll be happy to include it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All those in favor? Carried. All right, seeing as it's 3:10, 2025 asset management plan. I'm assuming Nick Larson's going to be on Zoom. Hi, Nick. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear fine.
Welcome, sir. Take it away.
Thank you. I don't have a video camera, but I can hear loud and clear.
Okay.
All right.
We can
thanks,
see
everyone.
you.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, there we go. Nice to see everyone's looking great on a nice Monday afternoon. Okay, let me get into it. Slideshow. Okay, just let me present my screen here. Okay. Everyone can see my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. All right, so presentation agenda. So we're going to do a quick overview of your asset inventory, just briefly touch on your recent capital spending, get into the approach, what's different or new for the asset management plan this time around, and then get into the summary of the 2025 update results. So asset inventory, the total replacement value of all the infrastructure in St. Clair is approximately 1.7 billion. We talk a lot in billions in this world, but to bring it back into something that means something to someone, it's about $260,000 per private dwelling, at least, based on your 2021 census data. So that gives you a sense of how much each person has of the infrastructure that services them. And the important part to point out is that that inventory is actually made up of a big database. It's Appendix C of our asset management plan, a big spreadsheet of individual rows in the spreadsheet for each asset group. So there's approximately 11,000 total asset records that represent all the infrastructure in your 15 asset groups. So everything you see is done very much at the bottom-up level. Recent capital spending. So over the last 3 years, there's been approximately $57 million in capital. And that includes, recognizing there's an additional 45 million planned in 26 and the second half of the plant in 27. And again, the point of an asset management plan is it's there to provide context and information to support these capital spending decisions. So that's what we're ultimately trying to do, is look at this past capital, look at the state of the infrastructure, and figure out where do we see capital spending needing to go over the short, medium, and long term. So a bit onto our approach. So the first thing you'll see in our report is that we're now using the term performance. So the term performance means more than condition. It is a measure of how well an asset is fit for purpose or meeting its objectives or requirements. That means assets that are too small, functionally obsolete, other reasons require a lot of maintenance, other reasons why they're unfit for service and require money to be spent on them. So we measure current performance from a whole range of information. So on the very technical end, like bridges get inspected every 2 years by engineers, and they provide a 10-year list of work that needs to happen in order for that bridge to be fit for purpose. And for something more like parks, we're relying on a spreadsheet of assets, staff to observe the parks, understand the wants and needs of the community, and come up with the list of projects to understand ultimately how well an asset is either new, fit for purpose, and is in the good performance category, or, an asset that begins to age, it's in the fair category, it's still, not perfect, but okay for now. And then an asset ultimately reaches the poor performance category, which is a very explicit thing, meaning it's unfit for service and requires treatment. So what that means is for every asset that is in the poor performance category, everywhere you see on the asset management plan, there's complete line of sight. What you're seeing here is just a sample of the roads and parks assets that are in the poor performance category. But for every asset on every graph, when we say what's in the red, what's in the poor on this asset group, there's a complete line of sight to a big appendix that's like of those 11,000 assets that tell us exactly what assets represent the assets that are in the poor performance category. And therefore need something to be done on it. So just a quick clip from the bridges and the parks to give you a sense of what that looks like. The other piece that we do is we explicitly connect your capital plan to your assets. So Appendix B is your consolidated capital plans for all your asset groups, building on the current 2026, and some asset groups have a longer term plan. For example, water and wastewater have a 10-year plan. So we're able to have a column in the capital plan now, which is the asset ID, and then we can go back to our inventories in Appendix C and again have complete line of sight from assets that are poor because they're unfit for service, and we're going to make the red go away, so to speak, by doing a project on that asset, making it go from poor to the good performance category. So the other piece you'll see in the reports, and you'll be seeing these in asset management plans moving forward, is a performance distribution. So you see these graphs, what they're showing you is by replacement value, what % of the asset group is in the good, fair, and poor performance category. So that's what we look at: current performance or current state of infrastructure. How well are things doing right now? And then the second piece we do is forecast performance versus spending over time. So in that world, what we're trying to figure out is infrastructure is consumed, performance deteriorates over time, and at the same time we spend money and that improves performance. So to give you what that looks like for some individual assets, on the graph you see two different life cycle strategies where we're trying to optimize how much we spend on an asset to keep it meeting our performance objectives. So in the black dashed line, you see an asset that's replaced every 40 years. And in the gold line, you see an asset that's rehabilitated every 15 years with a smaller rehabilitation activity. So that's what's happening behind the scenes of all the graphs that you see in section 4. Assets are deteriorating. They require treatment in order for them to be in the good performance category again. And we have a bunch of graphs that look like this. Again, year 1, we spend money, assets become good. Similarly, year 2, we don't spend money and an asset will deteriorate into the poor performance category. And before we get into your actual results, that allows us to look at different scenarios where we can look at different spending and different options where we spend more, we have less red on our graphs, or we're doing more projects, spending less, and we have assets that are still in the poor performance category. So this is what it looks like in kind of a cartoon version, and this is what it looks like for your real infrastructure. So this is your roads. This is on the left-hand side, spending $3 million per year on average over the long term on renewing roads. And on the right-hand side, only spending $1 million per year. So when we ask the question, well, how do we end up with recommending $3 million per year for the roads? This is the type of analysis that happens for us to arrive at a $3 million number. So we can see on the right-hand side, we spend only $1 million. Many more assets over the 25-year forecast period end up being in the poor performance category. And again, to connect this back to specific projects and assets, on the left-hand side here, you see your bridge forecast. And on the right-hand side, this is our detailed Appendix D. Again, it's a big spreadsheet. So showing all of the forecasted spending on the asset group over the next 25 years. So we can look at specifically what are we seeing in the short, medium, and long term. But the important piece is to show how this actually helps make real decisions. Sure, we want to know we spend more capital and we have less red on our graphs, but here's an example of how it supports specific decision-making with respect to an asset group like bridges. So what you see here on the left-hand side, only spending $2 million a year on bridges versus the right-hand side spending $1 million a year. And what we can do is really isolate to these 3 years, and we can show you that if we only spend $2 million versus $1 million a year, that's a total of $3 million over 3 years. And these are the bridges that won't happen if we spend $1 million versus $2 million. So really that's what the new era of asset management planning is about, is being able to bring context to the spending decisions so that we can bring it back to, yes, we want to have less assets in the poor performance category over time. So we want to have a strategic spending level by asset group, but also really zoom that into specific asset groups and start having discussions about, well, what does this mean to specific projects that will or won't happen if we spend more money or less money. From a financial strategy perspective, this is the first year that the asset management plan is required to have a financial strategy. So that's a new piece that you're going to see relative to the previous asset management plans. How we create that financial strategy is we make baseline assumptions around operating and capital inflation over the long term from an expenditure perspective, as well as on a revenue perspective. So we make assumptions around your own source revenue increases, but also we estimate that your recurring government grants, which represents a large chunk of revenue for you, we make assumptions about its growth over time. And in the case of the recurring government grant, we assume that that number doesn't increase over time. The province and the feds haven't committed to, pegging those to inflation. So from a practical perspective, we're being conservative by assuming that it's going to stay at the $4.5-ish million that you've got right now. So what we're trying to do is make these baseline assumptions around operating costs and revenues. And then we're looking at what does the revenue need to be for either the tax or rate revenue in order to fund the capital that we're seeing. And so an important piece is that the financial strategy is not recommending a tax or rate increases. It's providing perspective to townships for your strategy to fund your infrastructure needs. So your financial professionals who work in your organization are responsible for coming up with the budget and coming up with a detailed financial planning and how everything's going to be funded. The purpose of the financial strategy and the asset management plan is really to provide that bigger picture perspective of what does it look like the revenues need to be in order to fund the infrastructure needs that we're seeing. Okay, so that's the last slide on our approach. And now we're just going to get into a quick recap of the summary of the results. So here's your current performance. So here's your 15 asset groups and the assets that are in good, fair, and poor performance. So your worst performing assets are your bridges and facilities. Campgrounds has a lot of red in it. That relates to a couple of big projects that are planned. And for example, you can see the big chunk of green on the golf course representing or reflecting the large clubhouse improvement project that was just done. So you can see how this reflects the work that was done. We can see it both positive and the work that needs to happen. We can see it in the assets that are in the poor performance category. So this is available in both or presented in both a graph as well as a table. So from this table, we can conclude of your $1.7 billion in assets, approximately 11%, or about 185 million worth of those assets require a project to be done on them. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to spend $184 million on those assets. Some assets only require a rehabilitation activity in order for them to go from poor to good. So it's not the recommended spending is done in the forecast section in section 4. This is telling us by value what assets right now are in the different performance categories. Okay, so that's our snapshot of current performance. And then section 4 of the asset management plan starts doing the forecast. So this is where we're presenting 25-year spending and performance forecasts, one for each asset group. And so the analysis that you see here is for the bridges, but this gives you an example of the type of analysis that's in each asset group. So the graph that you see is presented in constant dollars. The comment section reflects the conclusions with respect to both constant dollars and inflation adjusted dollars. And towards the end of section 4, we continue to discuss the spending needs both in constant dollars as well as inflation adjusted dollars to provide perspective. So again, something like the bridges, what you're seeing here is an average of approximately $2 million per year in constant dollars. In inflated dollars, that goes to $3 million per year. So your 2024 engineering assessments identified approximately $20 million of bridge work that needs to happen over the next 10 years. So you get your $2 million per year. But for example, some of the context discussion that we had for every asset group were appropriate. In the case of bridges, your recent tender prices on the 2 bridges that you're tendering right now, they're coming in higher than even the estimates from the 2024 engineering assessment. So you're due for updated assessments in 2026. So that'll be another point to circle back on processes that the township's also doing concurrently, like your bridge inspections, to make sure that we have a discussion with the consulting team delivering that project and make sure that we share the latest tenders for the bridges that you're seeing and that we're going to get a more accurate number that either reflects the work the cost of the bridges we're seeing now, or says, no, those were one-offs. We do think that the numbers they put in are still accurate. So that's the level of detail we get into on an asset by asset basis or an asset group by asset group basis. At the end of that section, we summarize the spending. They are separated by the water and wastewater assets that are rate supported. Those capital forecasts feed into your rate study, which is ongoing right now concurrently. So you'll see in our financing strategy, we don't try and also answer the same question the rate study is doing. We focus on the tax supported side of the business. So we have a consolidated capital forecast of tax supported assets, excluding your golf and campground assets. So that information is presented in both a table and or both a graph and a summary table. So this is your 25-year spending forecasts in both 25-year totals and average annual spending, presented in both capital or constant 2025 dollars and inflation adjusted dollars. So the top level takeaway of this table would be for your tax supported assets over the next 25 years, an average investment of approximately $9.3 million in constant dollars is will achieve your desired infrastructure objectives. That's approximately $240 million over the 25-year period. And again, because of the nature of inflation over the 25 years with inflation, that ends up being approximately $354 million in inflation adjusted spending over the next 25 years for your tax supported assets. Okay, so now we get into the question that the OREG 588 is asking us, which is what happens if we don't spend enough money? So what the OREG lets us say is, and it asks for us to discuss the financial strategy to fund the desired infrastructure performance objectives. And if we can't afford that or we're not planning on doing it, what are the risks of happening if we don't? And so there's a table presented in the report which briefly describes some of the risks of the performance falling below the objectives for each asset group. And that's the process that staff use to prioritize with council and senior leadership the projects that do make the cut moving forward on an annual basis. So from a financial strategy results perspective, what you see on the left-hand side is if we only increase the tax levy, and again, we'll get into the next slide, but this is total tax levy revenue by 3% over the long term, that we do see a natural decline or a gradual decline in the consolidated reserve forecast, indicating that we won't have sufficient funds to deliver that infrastructure program that we've concluded meets the desired expectations. And on the right-hand side, we do end up with sufficient money. That's a 5% tax increase for 5 years, following to a 4% and then down to a 3.5%. And you can see here a maximum negative position of approximately $5 million. In reality, again, back to the financing strategy isn't the plan to finance each project. In reality, the negative position would be offset by deferring projects or debt financing a project, and the negative reserve position just is illustrative of the total spending over the 25 years and what level of revenue would be required in order to fund that program. So the conclusions of the financial strategy, these are verbatim from the report, just so we make sure we get them clear. So just to emphasize, you are highly dependent on recurring provincial and federal grants to fund your infrastructure program. If we assume 3% inflation operating capital expenditures, then 5%, 4%, and 3.5% increase to the tax levy over the short, medium, and long term. So that's 5 years, then the following 5, and then in the long-term period, will generate sufficient money to fund your $9.4 million in current, or $9.3 million in 2025 dollars, or 13.4 inflation adjusted, 13.4 million inflation adjusted dollars over the long term. Increases above the 3% generate approximately, these are big numbers, $135 million over the 25 years. So that represents approximately 38% of your inflation adjusted capital program, which means that spending would have to fall from the 9.3 million to approximately 5.8 million. And so that gives you a sense of what projects would not make the cut if we spend 5.8 instead of 9.4 million. And prioritizing those projects should be done based on the risk of their assets not meeting their performance objectives. Now, 2 caveats to that: those increases are offset by achieving one-off or unconditional grants, as they're called. You're able to secure a big grant for your wastewater plant, so those will obviously, any funding you can will offset the need to increase the tax revenue to fund those projects. And similarly, the numbers that we're talking about is the total tax levy. So if you're growing as a community and you have assessment growth, then then the actual tax property tax bill that homeowners will realize is going to be less than 3.5% or less than those numbers. But conversely, if your population is decreasing, then those numbers will increase faster than the total tax levy. So we've just presented what the tax levy revenue needs to be in order to fund the capital program. And so with that, that's the end of my presentation. Thanks for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
Through the mayor, thank you. So it's our understanding right now, if we only did a 3% increase, we're going to be way below by that graph on page 35. Is that correct? I'm understanding?
Correct.
This? Okay.
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. Yep.
Okay. And you have recommended that the 5% for 5 years, 4 for the next 5, and then 3.5 thereon, and that would keep us, we'd be able to maintain out of the poor situation? Or would that bring us out, our infrastructure out of the poor, or our assets out of the poor? So.
Good question. So through the chair, the first thing I'd like to point out is the AMP doesn't recommend a tax increase. So we provide
Correct.
perspective that with these tax increases, this is what we would see in the long-term forecast. So, but what those larger increases will allow us to do is to prevent the amount of assets in the poor performance category, the amount of red, from increasing exponentially over time. So that number will allow us to maintain and achieve the objectives. So allow us to fund, and again, we can get into specific projects that, you know, it will allow us to fund your $2 million a year in road needs, hit your $3 million a year you need in, $2 million a year in bridges, hit your $3 million a year in roads, as well as fund the projects that you've got on the books for major equipment, major facilities, and those sorts of things. So with those larger increases, you're able to fund your desired infrastructure program.
Okay, thank you. And I have a follow-up question to that as well. On page 16 of the final draft, I'm just going to pull that up. At the,
Yeah, I've got it here, page
You've got it?
16 of the PDF, like in the bottom right,
it is just,
facilities forecasts.
no, so on the attachment on the St. Clair Township Asset Management Plan final, in the very first attachment, on page 16 at the bottom, it says, motion for staff to complete a long-term needs assessment of all facilities to support future asset management plan updates. That's just a suggestion from the report.
Oh, sorry, that's your staff report. Yes, that should be, maybe that's a question for Brian.
Sure, we can, Brian.
But before Brian, we did recommend that the township complete a comprehensive facility needs assessment. So that was a recommendation of ours. But that, I think page 16, sorry, is that? Okay, I see it here. Yes, the township should complete. It is my report. Sorry, my mistake.
Okay.
Sorry, Brian. Yes, long-term needs assessment of all the facilities to support future AMP updates. Yes,
Okay,
that is something that I think should happen in the township.
thank you.
Thanks, Nick. We see reports basically every council meeting too. And it's great to have the asset management, and I'm all for that. You have to know what's what, but you still have to remember, ultimately, it's the residents that pay down the line, and you can't overforce a tax burden at the end of the year. So it's quite wise to spread the projects out because we have so many. I heard you mention the wastewater treatment. Well, we worked very hard to get that 34 million, but we're still gonna be about 15 million short. So that shortfall has to come in too. So it's a very good report, and I appreciate it. I'm just bringing in some more play
Yep.
to the game
Thanks
here.
for
Yep.
For
Thank you.
sure, for sure.
All right, thanks a lot. So we'll carry on.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone, for your time. Enjoy the
Thank
rest of your
you.
meeting.
All right, back to the board here. 8.6, be it resolved that the 40-kilometer-an-hour speed limit in school areas report submitted by Coordinator of Operations David Neely be received as information. We have a mover for that. Councilor Brown. Second. Councilor Myers. Anybody have anything on that? Counselor Brown?
Yeah, I want to thank David for that report. I think he's done a good job in his assessment, and there are certain situations where a speed adjustment is probably not needed, but I think, as he highlighted in his report, the St. Clair Boulevard by Sir John Moore School is certainly a candidate to put a lower speed in that area. So I don't know if, when we gradually get to this, if you're looking to adopt some of his recommendations, or are we going to go at it one by one?
You can pick what you want off this, I guess, before we can add that to this one, can't you? Go ahead, sir, if you want to add anything to it.
You referring to me, sir?
Yes,
Okay.
you're talking.
Yeah. So in his report, I think there's 7 locations that he indicated that are potential. And I would certainly go along with item 1, which is the Sir John Moore School in Corunna. Colonel Cameron, he's saying it's a poor candidate, so I wouldn't adopt any new stops or speed limit signs on that portion of Cameron Street. St. Joseph's School, it could be a good designator, he's saying, but it goes into where the school's located there. I think one thing that could happen there that would help traffic flow would be to, in a lot of the schools areas, we've created no parking on one side of the road. And I think Birchbank is a good candidate to look at no parking between the hours, I think, of 8 to 9 and 3 to 4, if that could be made a consideration.
Down the line, we can put that in, but we're doing the
Okay.
speeds right now.
And Brigden, at the Brigden Public School, he's saying it would actually not be necessary where the school's located, but possibly on Brigden Road, but I don't think I want to make any change there at this time. The Riverview Public School, and on the Parkway itself, is, from what he's saying, that we should change that sign from 50 kilometers to 40, which makes sense on the Parkway there when the lights are flashing during school periods. And also the Moortown Courtright Public School here in Moortown on the Moor line, that is a good candidate also to put a 40-kilometer zone, so I would support that. And I think Sacred Heart School in Port Lambton, it's there again, where the crossroads meet there on between John and Stoddard. It's really not a good candidate because there's not a lot of speed to gain through that area. So I guess I'm mainly going with his recommendations, so.
I was gonna say, his report is pretty well right on the mark then
Yeah.
for what everyone thinks.
So I'll support the
Deputy Mayor,
recommendation.
Okay.
Riverview, the way I read it, is a possible candidate for 40. I really don't think it's necessary to go, it's already 50 with flashing lights. I don't think it's necessary to go to 40 there. Literally, all those students are bused in there. I very seldom see anybody walking or riding their bike to that school. And there's a crosswalk there anyway if they do. So I think it could remain at 50 as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, anybody else? Well, we have a motion is on the table, so I'll call the question. Everybody agree to it? All those in favor? Thanks, Dave. So has this means whatever schools you have on there that said 40 is agreed to, so you can change them up?
Yeah, so just to confirm, number 1, 5, and 6 would be lowered to 40 kilometers. So that is, number 1 is Sir John Moore, and Riverview School, and Moortown Courtright Public Schools, those 3.
that it? Okay. Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Dave, if we do the Moortown speed limit change to 40, right now the school sign is above the hill. The speed limit is at the other end of the above the hill. Could we coordinate those so that they're both at the same spot so they know why it's being slowed down to 40?
I think that's a great idea. We should combine those two. Like my report had shown there, there's a couple different ways to do it, but the most common in the school areas is to have the school sign and then the speed limit below it.
Okay, Counselor? Did I call a question on that? Okay. Carry on. Be it resolved that the Community Services Information Report submitted by Director of Community Services Kendall Lindsay be received as information. Have a mover for this. Counselor Langus, thank you. Second. Counselor Foster, any questions? Seeing none, all those, okay. Go ahead.
The last page of Kendall's report, or in his report, he refers to the, let me find it here, the community halls. It says, planning is underway to establish a schedule for stationary engineers to conduct the fire inspection at the halls, using a form provided by Andrew. So I guess that's part of an ongoing inspection of our community halls. But what that leads me to is on the chart about projects in the queue, it says Brigden Community Hall fire deficiencies. And it looks like it was a project that got approved back in 2022, 4 years ago, and we got $50,000 set aside to do that. And I'm just wondering if that's something we need to pursue at this time, that $50,000 at the Brigden Hall. In fact, I'll make a motion until I see a more detailed amount. That $50,000, I looked it up, it comes out of the Education and Environmental Fund. And I'm just wondering, I'd like to see a hold put on that until we have a better understanding of what that money's going for.
Okay, make a motion on that?
Yeah, I'll make that a motion, sir.
Yeah, we'll receive the report first, and then you can come up with that.
Okay.
So all those in favor? Carrie, go ahead, Councilor Brown.
Well, that was it. It's on that one item on his report. I just,
Repeat it so we all have an understanding of what.
oh, well, just as a, overall, that $50,000, rather than proceeding, we've had it on hold for, it looks like 4 years. I want to put it on hold till we get a better understanding of what these deficiencies are.
Okay, that's a motion.
Yeah.
I'll second through your worship. We read in a previous report that there were some issues with some staircases or something there. I've been by since, and I'm not too sure what the issues are with the staircases, and I would hate to spend $50,000 without getting inside of the head of whoever did approve it in 2022.
I had questions still. Thank you. So through the mayor, and this will follow up to the making waves. In Kendall's report, let me just back this up. Kendall's report on the Moore Sports Complex about the piping repairs that are urgently needed throughout the facility. And do we want to talk about that with the making waves, or can I deal with this it kind of goes ahead with the Making Waves project? Or would you,
Well, why don't we wait until we get somebody to receive this report, and then you can bring it up on that.
okay.
Okay?
Through the mayor, yeah, I just wanted to speak out that there was a report that came to council that laid out the fire deficiencies and what would be done with the money. Nothing was done, well, Sue tried to accomplish everything on the list, but we had some issues and we were just so busy that now Marcus is here, we're trying to clean up all the lists. So we're in a working relationship with the fire department to get all our deficiencies done up, and he's been generous with us so far, but we're trying to get them cleaned up. But there was a report, so I can just go back and get the report and bring it next meeting, but that's basically my understanding. It was already a report and there's everything listed on it that's needs to be done.
Through the mayor, a few questions. So the, Kendall, can you explain the cast iron piping so that we all can understand how that's feeling?
Yes, through the mayor, so just as the building's aging, we've noticed that the wear and tear on the building, but we've had issues throughout the years where we've had to open things up, and we've noticed that the piping is, it's 50 years old and it's starting to fail. So as we go into stuff, we want to make sure that we are covering that off as we go through. So we had put it in as a project for this year to come up, to start looking at, like, if we're gonna get into this project and the basement's gonna be exposed anyways, like, we're gonna have to tear things apart, so it's a perfect time to replace all that piping and infrastructure that service the change rooms and the pool area, which is all down around the maintenance room and the change rooms downstairs and upstairs.
A follow-up question, and this would, to George, where do you see we get the money for this project, George?
Through the mayor, I have no idea. We've been working on the budget, so we've used most of the money that we've had. So it should be in the budget if we're approving it as something this size.
This is an added. This is an added $1.5 million. This is not anywhere, right? Like, we have a $1 million grant, and then we're matching that $1 million. That was taken care of, but this is another $1.5 million on top of that. Yes,
Yes.
okay. Go ahead.
Through the mayor, just so I can understand this grant, the Making Waves grant, we had till 2026 to complete, or I guess I'd be asking Kendall this, to complete the project on, we were giving, part of it, the leftover part was about $1,400,000, is that correct? Left for the pool refurbishment?
We spent 520 on the roofs, so we got 1.48 left for the pool project.
And 1.4 left that we have to come up with, or that is there from the grant?
The 1.48 would be split in half, so we have to come up with half,
Half of that,
so
And
just
if
shy
we-
of
oh, sorry.
750.
750. And so of the 750, that's for the pool to be done, the pool, the tiles, and what you're recommending is, while everything is torn apart, rather than have to close down the facility this year, do those repairs, then if we don't do the piping now and the change rooms, then the facility will be closed down again and cost more, and the cast iron piping.
Yeah, so through the mayor, that's the gist of it. We've started scratching into this project, and we can certainly just do the pool portion of it, but then we will have to turn around and close the change rooms at some point, and that might not be a closure that we get to choose. It might be, with the piping in the state that it's in, it might be just a forced closure. So we could do the pool and then turn around and have to close if the pipes fail. right? So then you're looking, you'd have the pool done, but you wouldn't have, so it's just a catch-22, right? The building is gonna be closed for 6 to 9 months to get the pool project done. We have to tear everything apart anyways, so it's the time, it's kind of the time to do it. It's not by no means the greatest solution or the greatest timeline. Unfortunately, when it's tied with a grant, as you get into it, we just got into it, and of course, the building is the age it was. When we did the arena project, we did come in under budget on that one. And at that time, I basically told council that we will be constantly putting money into the facility, as the facility is a 50-year-old facility. I didn't think we'd be this far along to already be doing the pool, so the timeline sped up on us. When this grant came along, everything kind of sped up on us. So you would see in our budgets, we were putting money in for pool change rooms into our budgets and trying to get ready for that portion of it. This has just accelerated it. And I don't think, to do it justice, we had to bring it forward at this time because it's turning into a multi-million-dollar project because it is a multi-million-dollar facility.
We had 750 in the budget for this project, right? We had 750 in the budget for this part of it, right, George?
Yes, Mayor, yes. We have 750,000 from the environment and education that we're using to fund half of the grant
Yeah.
for the pool, yeah.
Okay, so we leave it, 3 days is the budget, and you can talk about what you want to do then on that part. Counselor?
Yeah, I was going to suggest we table this and bring that up at the budget meeting on Thursday. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay,
I have another question.
go ahead.
Through the mayor, and I'm not sure who would answer this, but I was asked by a constituent yesterday when I was working the Silver Stick. They wanted to know with the repairs, because they had read the budget online as well. With the repairs that we were needed in the facility, they said, why couldn't we ask industry for example, like the Progressive Auto Sale in Sarnia? And I don't know if we've ever approached industry to get funding for, I know they did it for naming rights that I found out. Does anybody have any information so I can get back to the constituent and educate myself?
John?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I mean, City of Sarnia, that's their main arena, and they do the naming rights. Progressive Auto has it right now. My understanding is that that is coming up shortly, and they'll be going out, because I think it's for a 5-year period that you get the naming rights, and every 5 years you change it. Obviously, that's something we could do. Our facility doesn't have the same high profile because we don't have a junior A team, and I don't know how much money that would generate, but it's something council could look at.
Okay.
So I would like to make a motion that we have staff, if we could look into, have naming rights for our facilities, how we go about that.
Okay. Is that your motion? Yes. Okay, do we have a seconder? Counselor Langstaff? Any more questions? All those in favor? Carried. All right, so this one's good. So we'll call a question to receive the report, and then we'll talk about the rest of this budget night. All those in favor? Carried. Bylaws, be it resolved that the following bylaws receive all 3 readings and thereby passed. Bylaw 1 of 26, borrowing bylaw. Bylaw 2 of 26, zoning bylaw amendment, 1039 Smith Line. Bylaw 3 of 26, confirming bylaw. And bylaw 4 of 26, surplus land bylaw, Hill Street, Spinato, and dynamic graphics. Do we have a mover for this? Councilor Langus. Second. Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Carried.
Just a question on that bylaw 4, which is the surplus land on Hill Street, we're not assuming any costs on that, getting that registered in that property.
No, none at all. That it? Okay. All right, councilors' reports. Councilor Langs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received a couple concerns about parking when you have a single vehicle and you can't fit it in the driveways, or single driveway and you can't fit all your vehicles in there, and you're parking on the shoulder of the road. So I had to make a couple of those clarifications out. I went on January 7th to the Moore Museum Board meeting, and Fiona, our fearless leader there, is leaving next month on maternity leave, so I want to wish her all the best, and I want to wish everybody else a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Councilor Myers.
Things have been relatively quiet since our last meeting. Sunday, I worked with the folks over at the Wilkesport Community Center to host the Country Jamboree. It's attended by about 170, I think, people. And it was a successful day, and I'm glad to see everybody out there. And I've got some consideration meetings coming up on the 27th, I believe. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Langstaff.
Thank you, your mayor. On December 29th, we lost the perfect public servant. John DeMars was there for my grandfather, my father, and myself. St. Clair Township was a better place with John DeMars in it. I look forward to the dedication opportunities that would best showcase Don's devotion in this community. Rest in peace, my friend. Lastly, I would like to ask council to consider directing the clerk to write a letter of support for Sarnia's International Grain Terminal. Cargill has been and must continue to be a vital port for importing and exporting agricultural goods. Sarnia exported 60% of Ontario's 2025 wheat crop. 35% of all of Ontario's exported commodities leave through Sarnia, not to mention the imports. I ask this council to support a drafted letter to all necessary bodies expressing our strong support of securing the long-term presence and operations of Cargill's grain terminal in Sarnia. I so move.
Okay. Anybody want to second that? Councilor Myers? All those in favor? Carried. That it? Yes, sir. Councilor Brown?
Thank you, Mayor Egger, and Happy New Year to everyone. Yes, I had a couple meetings. The asset management, we met here last week, and on the 8th, I had a flood action committee with the St. Clair Region Conservation, and reporting water levels are down significantly. And Deputy Mayor told me no ice to worry about at this time. Okay, I guess when we were talking about these school zones again, and it was brought to my attention that the school zone by Cameron and also at Sir John Moore, they do have parking restrictions on one side. So I'd like to ask our staff to bring back a report on possible parking restrictions on Birchbank to eliminate the same thing with the school buses turning down that street at certain various times, like I say, from, I believe the other ones are posted 8 till 9 and then from 3 till 4.
Is that a motion?
Well, or, yeah, do you want a motion? Okay, I'll make that a motion.
Seconder? Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Anything else, Councilor? Councilor Foster?
Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody. Don't have anything, nothing to report on going to any meetings, but little sleep deprived because I'm trying to learn as much as possible about this asset management. So everything aligns with our strat plan. It's a lot for councilors as we get on to, we get elected and we're not professionals. So I want to thank the staff for all the help that they're giving me behind the scenes, understanding, Brian Black for forwarding the information for the course for the asset management, which I've signed up for, so that I can keep trying to understand how we spend everything. That's it.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And also, Happy New Year. I only had a couple of meetings, which is the way it should be through the Christmas break. I had an emergency services training session and a flood action committee meeting. And I would also like to ask the clerk to saddle up our bylaw officer and get him out doing some night patrols for parking violations, because there are several that I've seen. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Over the holidays, had an OPP meeting, emergency management exercise here. I went into Marshall Gallen Manor and had Christmas dinner with the residents. I met with a few groups before Christmas. Attended the New Year's levy at Corunna Legion Branch, opening of the Moortown Juvenile Silver Stick, and attended a few games throughout the weekend. It's a very good show there, and it looked great. Went to the Moortown Lady Flags Girls Hockey Day, and I had a meeting yesterday with Michael Harris. He's the new district manager of the Ministry of Environment, Heavy Industrial Compliance Group. And it's a nice connection to have now for action on anything. So that's it. Upcoming meetings, 2026 budget meeting, January 15th, 26 at 5. And note, it's not live streamed, so you have to come here in person or pick it up off the website. Regular meeting, session 2, February 2nd, 26 at 3. Regular meeting, session 3, February 17th, 26 at 6. And regular meeting, session 4, March 26th at 3 p.m. And at that point, be it reserved that the meeting do hereby adjourn. Mover?
Yeah, sure.
Councilor Angus. Seconder? Deputy Mayor, you get that this time. All those in favor? Carried.